So guys, the Nintendo Switch, it has an official date when it's going to start announcing like price, launch titles, stuff along the lines of that. January 12th, 2017, I'm pretty sure that's the date anyway. So I decided, heck, let's start talking about what the launch titles could potentially be. So today, I'm going to talk about launch titles that I only expect in the United States. I'm not going to talk about Europe exclusive or Japan exclusive. I'm just going to focus on the United States. And keep in mind, we are only talking about launch lineup titles only, not titles that are coming out later in 2017. Like, as an example, we know that new 3D Sonic game will be holiday 2017 on the Nintendo Switch. That we'll not be talking about today. These will be the things that are coming out March, the day of the console's release. So anyway, before we get started, I thought it would be helpful if we all just kind of looked at what was previously launched from earlier consoles in Nintendo's lifespan. So we're not going to go all the way back to the NES and look at this, but let's start with the Nintendo 64 launch lineup and N64. Well, it was pretty pathetic, honestly. It's not too much that we can use for data to help try to figure out what could be launch titles. There was Pilot Wing 64 and Super Mario 64. There were two launch games for the N64 in the United States. That's a bit ridiculous. So I thought I would just mention that because I was kind of dumbstruck at how ridiculous this is. I thought there would at least be like 10 or more. So let's just move to the GameCube. Also, keep in mind, I won't be listing off every single launch title. I'll only be talking about the ones that are still important today or ones that were relevant at the time. So for the GameCube, we had Crazy Taxi, Luigi's Mansion, Madden NFL 2002. Yes, it's Madden because Wii U, I don't believe Wii U has Madden anymore. Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2, Rouge Leader, Super Monkey Ball, and Wave Race Blue Storm. Now, all those are really big games, but notice something interesting about that. No Mario, no Zelda. There was Luigi's Mansion on launch, but I think that's pretty interesting to see that in the past, Nintendo doesn't always go with their super hard hits at the very beginning. They have never launched with a Mario Kart, or at least for the GameCube, they didn't launch with a Mario, Zelda, or Mario Kart. Of course, their biggest was Luigi's Mansion. And now let's talk about the Wii lineup. There were a lot of games for the Wii, but the ones that I found to be the most important were Call of Duty 3, Excite Truck, that was a huge thing back then, super exciting. Rayman Raving Rabbids, Red Steel, another huge exciting title back in the day. Monkey Ball, Banana Blitz, Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, Trauma Center, Second Opinion, and of course, Wii Sports. So it's interesting to see that, of course, Wii Sports was bundled with every single version of the Wii, which is why it was so incredibly successful. But on top of that, there was also The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, a Zelda game on launch for a console. That's a pretty big deal. And I'd have to say that basically Wii Sports and Twilight Princess is what really launched the Wii from the very beginning. And now let's talk about the Wii U lineup. It's not too bad. I still think the Wii lineup was the best so far. But anyway, from what I could find, what seemed to be the most important, what launched on the Wii U release date was Assassin's Creed 3, Batman Arkham City Armored Edition, Call of Duty Black Ops 2, Madden NFL 13, Mass Effect 3, New Super Mario Bros. U, Nintendo Land, and Zombie U. Now, the biggest titles for the Wii U at the beginning was, of course, the Mario. Zombie U was huge, turned out to be a flop, and Nintendo Land was supposed to be this really, really big thing. But it turned out that, well, no, that just didn't happen. And Nintendo figured out once that system came out that our casual audience has moved to tablets and phones. They don't care about Nintendo Land or the Wii U at this point. And then, of course, the Wii U got butchered versions of the third-party titles like, Mass Effect 3, Black Ops 2, Assassin's Creed 3, which is really disappointing. So now that we've looked at launch games in Nintendo's past, I thought it would be kind of fun to predict what first-party and third-party titles could potentially be launch titles. Now, keep in mind, the things that we saw in the Nintendo Switch preview, those games are not 100% confirmed. Anyway, so I guess let's start with the obvious. One of the biggest launch titles for the Nintendo Switch will very likely be Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I mean, this game's been in development for several years now. There is no way that they're not going to launch with this thing, especially seeing how well the Wii did and they launched with Twilight Princess. I can see them launching the Wii U and the Switch versions, or maybe they'll delay the Wii U version, possibly. But anyway, they'll at least launch the Switch version of Breath of the Wild with the Switch, and I'm sure there'll of course be a bundle with it. And I mean, what else am I supposed to say? It's been in development for years, and it just makes sense for them to do this. And next, I'm going to predict Pikmin 4 could be another launch title. Now, I say this because during E3 2014, we were told that this title was near completion and would be ready for launch. Now, it's been 2 years, it's going to be almost 3 years since then, and still all we've gotten is a spin-off for Pikmin 3DS. What probably happened was that they've had to delay the game a little bit, they've had to push it back to work on other things, so I can see them still finishing Pikmin 4 for the launch of the Nintendo Switch. I mean, again, that's another huge Nintendo franchise, and I really think that, this is their last chance. They are going to be pushing everything that they've got. So, Pikmin 3 did relatively well, Pikmin 1 and 2 did great on the GameCube and whatnot, so I could definitely see if Pikmin 4 is not a launch title, it's definitely going to be coming out very near it. And next, I'm going to predict that new 3D Mario game, because as I've already stated, this is basically Nintendo's last chance in the hardware market. So I can really see them pushing out a new 3D Mario game on the launch. So if they can have a brand new Zelda Breath of the Wild and a new Mario game during the launch of the Nintendo Switch, wow, that will be fantastic for them. That will be really, really great for them. Like, there will be so much option for people. Like, some people only like Mario or only like Zelda or like both. So it makes it much more likely that people will want to pick up the system, especially if this new 3D Mario is an open world experience. Now, I don't really have anything to go on to assume that the new 3D Mario will come out during launch, but it just seems like it makes a lot of sense to me that they do that. Next, I'm going to predict a Super Mario Maker port. Now, I don't think we're going to get like a sequel to the game or anything, but I do think we're going to get a port from the Wii U, as well as the ability to transfer all of the saved stages from the Wii U to the Switch, and maybe they can work interconnected with each other, something along the lines of that. That'd be really cool if that happens. But again, they gotta pump out their biggest IPs. New Mario, Breath of the Wild, and Super Mario Maker, like that would be awesome, especially if they had some sort of deal where if you already bought Mario Maker on the Wii U or even the 3DS version, if you already bought those, maybe you could just transfer everything to the Switch version for like $5 or something, like especially if you've already purchased the game. I think that makes a lot of sense for them to do that. Now, these last two predictions, I'm not so sure on, but I still want to throw them out there. There's a possibility that we could get either a Splatoon port or a sequel to Splatoon. Now, according to the trailer, again, I don't think that anything shown in the trailer was 100% confirmed aside from Breath of the Wild, that there's a pretty good chance that we're going to be getting either new content for Splatoon or a sequel, because we saw new stages, new hairstyles. I think it's very likely, probably more likely, that we'll get a port of the original Splatoon for the Switch, and again, be able to transfer all of our Wii U data to the Switch if we had data on the Wii U in the past. And if they had a sequel, it'd probably be something that would come out around the summer of 2017, or maybe even the holidays of 2017. And my last first-party prediction, probably the least likely, Project Giant Robot. Now, this is a title that's recently still been confirmed as an upcoming first-party title, even though it's subsequently become Star Fox Gar. This could still be a standalone title for the Switch, but it doesn't seem nearly as likely, but there's still some sort of a possibility, just for the fact that it's still an upcoming first-party title. So, I mean, who knows? Now, before we get into the third parties, I really quick want to say that most of these game ideas that I have are games that have already been sampled as third parties that are supporting the Switch. So it seems much more likely, since they're already supporting the Switch, that maybe they'll have their games either ported on, or they're going to come out around the same time or a little later after. So anyway, let's get started. So first, let's start with Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, and I guess I'll throw in Call of Duty 4 Remastered, whatever. I honestly think that at least Infinite Warfare, hopefully COD 4 will be ported to the Switch with all of the up-to-date DLC. Now, I realize that those games are already going to have been out for a while now, but I still think that Activision is going to support them with Call of Duty just to see how well it sells. And if they don't do Infinite Warfare or COD 4 for Switch, they'll at least do the next Call of Duty, and then I can see them trying to do that because, they did offer Black Ops 2, and it did poorly because, it was a lackluster version. Hopefully Activision will learn from their mistakes and they'll give us a full-fledged version of Call of Duty for the Switch instead of something that's more lackluster. I'm also going to predict Final Fantasy 15, because basically just because Square Enix is supportive of the Nintendo Switch. Honestly, Final Fantasy 15, that's kind of a stretch. I don't know if Nintendo would do that. I mean, obviously we do have some sort of Final Fantasy games on Nintendo consoles in the past, even though they've been very, very minor. I'm still gonna throw it on my list anyway, because I feel like, you know, with how big the Switch seems like it's going to be, you know, as of recording this, already 18 million views in like 4 days on their preview trailer. I can see third parties really jumping on this bandwagon, seeing if they can profit from this console. So Final Fantasy 15 is going to be a huge hit on the other consoles, so I really think that they're going to take the chance and put it on the Switch, even though it's already going to have been out for a while. And next, I'm going to predict Dark Souls 3, another really big title. Again, if Nintendo was trying to get the 20s and 30s audience like they showed in the trailer, they're definitely going to try to get Dark Souls 3 on the Switch. I mean, that only makes sense. I mean, portable Dark Souls 3, that sounds amazing. And from what I've heard, the DLC is also coming out in 2017. So perhaps the Switch version will come with a little bit of the DLC, and then you don't even have to pay for all of it, but honestly, I doubt that would happen. We'd probably just get Dark Souls 3 and have to pay for all the DLC as normal. And next, I'm going to predict Resident Evil 7. Now, again, from what I've seen in trailers, this looks like a VR game, but maybe there'll be a version of Resident Evil 7 that doesn't really require VR that can be played on the Switch. Now, this is a little bit hypocritical of what I said earlier, how I don't want lackluster ports, but I'm honestly not sure if Resident Evil 7 will be a better off game with the VR. I'm sure it will be more scary, but I'm sure it'll be just as playable without the VR. So I can definitely see at least some sort of Resident Evil game ported to the Switch just to see how it does. Hopefully Resident Evil 7, because it is coming out January 2017, which is pretty close to the Switch's launch. And next, I'm going to predict South Park: The Fractured Butthole. Now, all we know is that this game is coming out in 2017. We don't know what time in 2017, but if it does come out around the first quarter, around February, March, or whatever, maybe it will launch with the Switch or somewhere near there. Now, again, Nintendo was trying to target the 20s and 30s demographic, and this is a game that we would play. I mean, everybody really loves South Park. The first South Park game, Stick of Truth, on PS3, 360. I believe it was on PC as well. I personally love that game. I didn't play too much of it, but it was a lot of fun, and I can really see them, you know, again, trying to break into the Switch. And next, I'm going to predict Sonic Mania. Now, this is another game coming out in 2017. Of course, Sega is supporting Nintendo Switch, and, you know, I mean, they're going to be porting the new 3D Sonic game to the Switch, so it doesn't really, it would be kind of weird if, you know, they ported the new 3D Sonic game to the Switch, but not Sonic Mania. So this seems like a game that could be a launch title. If it's not a launch title, it will definitely come out on the Switch no matter what. And my last prediction is Yooka-Laylee. Now, this is a game that is supposed to come out March 2017. Interesting. I can definitely see this being not only on the Switch, but absolutely a launch title. And this would be huge. It would be like going back to the N64 days, you know, with frickin' Conker's Bad Fur Day, Banjo and Kazooie, Banjo and Tooie, Donkey Kong 64. It would be like going back to those days, because Yooka-Laylee is that kind of game on a Nintendo console once again. So, and of course, Nintendo loves their indie developers. They support so many developers, you know. And real quick, before we end this video, I wanted to talk about the Virtual Console. Now, I'm not going to go through a whole list and predict what Virtual Console games I think will be on the Switch, but what I'd like them to do, even though they probably won't do this, is to start some sort of cloud service. So think Netflix or Hulu for video games. Imagine paying $9.99 a month or $14.99 a month, you know, somewhere around that price range, and being able to play hundreds of classic Nintendo games. You know, you could select from like 100 NES, 100 SNES, 100 N64, 100 Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, maybe even GameCube. Imagine being able to play a bunch of those games, like hundreds and thousands of them, for $9.99 a month. That's a gold mine right there. And then imagine that, you know, Nintendo swaps out some of those games with well, not brand new ones, but with different titles every month so that people have an incentive to continue to come back. I think a cloud service would be amazing, and it would be perfect for a portable console too. But honestly, I don't think they're going to do that. I think that makes a lot of sense. What they'll probably do is they're going to port over what they already have on the Wii U eShop to the Switch, and it would be a very cost efficient and kind of a lazy way to do it, but I think that makes the most sense for them to do that. But honestly, like, a cloud service could do so much for them. Anyway, please feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and leave a comment. Tell me, what do you want to see come out on the Switch on launch day? You want a new Mario? You want a new Zelda? I mean, obviously we're gonna get those, but do you want them on launch day, or do you think they should wait a little bit to push those out? Make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm super active on those sites. I talk about what's coming out on the channel, all sorts of updates, stuff like that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will speak to you all later.